Hello, Janet Beckers here. I've been getting questions about how do I sell my service, my product, when everybody is so scared at the moment, where everybody is focused on survival. How on earth can I possibly sell? My business is under threat because of this. I so get that. This is a really, really common question. In fact, this was a question from one of our members in the Success Circle this week, because how could her business was not related specifically to what people were focusing on at the moment. And if you try to go in and start selling something when they're focusing on what they see as this is my whole world now, you're going to get a kickback. I can tell you now, if you don't do it right, you are going to get a kickback. People are going to go, what are you trying to sell me this for right now? So how do you approach this so that you can still continue to sell? You can still keep your business viable. You can still help the people who were going to need your help to start with anyway, but do it in a way that is classy, but also strategic. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I have a 3-step template to be able to communicate. Now, this communication may be via email, video. It may be via blog posts. It could even be used in one-on-one conversations with people. So it's a really nice process, and it's respectful to the client, and also very likely can increase your chances of being able to make sales when really they're approached wrong. It's going to be an uphill battle for you just in the moment. So let me dive straight into what this template is. Okay, now the first thing we have to think about is the problem. So the big problem is people are really scared. They are really scared. They're in survival mode, okay? And their focus is on what's coming up in the future. I don't know. They're constantly, at the moment of me recording this, they're constantly, like all of us probably, always watching the news, having conversations constantly about how it's impacting everybody. And there is fear. It is really, really normal. So if you think about this in terms of making sales, this fear is an objection. Now, normally, whenever you're making a sale, when you're helping people work out, is what I'm offering right for you? Is it going to get you the result you want? Are you the right person for it? So that's what a sale is are you a right match? Am I the right match? Okay, let's make this happen. So when it comes to a sale, there's always going to be objections. Now, those objections may be to you. Are you the right person? Those objections may be to what you're offering. Is the way you've structured this and what you're offering, is that going to get me the outcome? And a lot of times the objections are personal ones, like, am I the right person to do this? Am I going to have the time to do this? So there's objections that work on all of those different levels. Now, if you know that you're the person that can absolutely get the results for them, and you have a way to help them that you know is going to help them get the results, you need to focus at the moment that what you have got here is people's personal objections of, is this the right time? Should I be focusing on this? Is this my priority? So think of this as meeting an objection in any kind of sale. And again, I just really want to reiterate that a lot of times people see selling as manipulative. If you're thinking that, lighten up on yourself, baby, because if you're in business, your whole thing there is you're providing solutions, you're helping people. A sale is simply, is this the right person and me a good match? That's what it is. So I want you to, what I'm about to share with you is not manipulation. It is a way of being able to go, okay, are we a match? At the moment, people are finding it very difficult to be able to make those decisions of, is this the right match? Because their emotions are so tied up with fear. And hey, yours will be as well, okay? Yours will be around, is my business going belly up? Because people are full of fear and not buying, okay? So you both got fear happening. Totally get it. So that, if you think about it in this way, when it comes to you being able to communicate with people, to be able to see is, here's the offer, is this going to work for you, and is this the right time? You have to address that fear, and you have to address it up front. You cannot address fear in a very, logical sort of left brain side. You have to address fear through connecting with emotions. Otherwise people will not be able to make decisions. And a lot of times the decisions that they're wanting to make is exactly for what you've got to offer. They just can't make it. So how do you help them to move from that sense of despair to a sense of hope? How do you do that? So that's what I'm going to share with you now, this structure. Now, I want to give a heads up to my friend Pete Godfrey. Pete Godfrey's been around for a gazillion years, known as the Wizard of Words, and this is adapted from a framework that he has taught myself and my clients, which is called the Triple S, Story, Segue, Sell. It's a template, a framework that he uses all the time for writing emails. And I use this for my emails, my clients do. We use these for a lot of communication. So it's based on that. So heads up to you, Pete. But what I want to share with you is a bit of an adaptation for in this particular unique time that we find us. Okay, so the first thing is, if we're going to be starting with their emotions, the best way to help people to be able to move from that feeling of despair and fear to move over into a feeling of hope, because it can only be that feeling of hope if they're then willing to think about, okay, well, now, is this possible for me? The best way to do that is through stories, because stories connect with the emotions. So how do you work out what story to tell and what is the framework for that story? So this is the step number 1, and within that we've got a couple of steps. Okay, so first of all, you want to think about, okay, what is the thing that I want people to think afterwards? So it may be that you're wanting people to feel at the end that, you know what, my health is absolutely a top priority at the moment. So if that's what you're wanting to do, keep that in mind. Okay, I want them to think about health. You might be thinking, you know what, creativity is the most important thing, or relationships with people is the most important thing, or my ability to be able to take this opportunity and create a new revenue stream as a result, or my ability to my business to survive this and then perhaps even thrive. So what is the outcome that you want people to feel, that glimmer of hope of, yeah, it is possible, and yes, I can. It's possible for me. So think about that final thing, and of course that is going to relate to whatever it is that you have to offer them. And I'll give you an example in a moment so you can see. Okay, so start with, what is the outcome that I'm wanting to have? And then you can move on. So if that's the story that you want, so now you can't just go and tell a hopeful story. It's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work, because people are at the moment deep in fear, deep in insecurity. So you need to meet people where they are now and acknowledge it. So the way to do that is to either tell a story from your own experience, or tell a story that is happening in the media. And you want it to be talking about starting with the fear, the what was wrong, and then transitioning through to what happened next. So that you get that story then becomes to where the hope is. You can't just start with the hope, because people are not going to be able to hear it. it's just going to go in deaf ears. You have to start where they are and acknowledge, okay? So let me give you an example, because this can be a hard thing to think of. So I'll share an example that you may have been aware of, you might have been seeing in the media, which is these beautiful photos that are going around of Venice, the waterways in Venice, that for the first time in a gazillion years, people can see the fish. And in fact, people have been seeing dolphins, if what I'm seeing is true. How exciting is that? Now, if you just went straight into your communication with people going, how awesome is this about the dolphins? That will definitely have an impact. What will have a stronger impact and will make them feel that this is significant for them is if you start the story in for example, this way. It can be, sharing, I know, I get what it's like, at the moment that, all of us have got this whole new reality at the moment of we're being hunkered down. We can't go about our daily lives. We can't connect. And you can be saying, look, I know for myself, this is really, really new. Like, I'm having to change things. Or you could be like me and you could say, well, actually, not that much has changed because I work from home anyway. But, other things have. So you're acknowledging that, and then how that can be feeling like everything is going wrong, like it's the apocalypse. So you can acknowledge those feelings so that people know that they're heard. Your next step then is to go, okay, but you know what? On the side of every negative, there are always hints of positives. And then you tell the story about, hey, I've got a link here for you to a photo, or here's a video of, can you believe it? That it's like Mother Nature has cleansed herself. And now look at this beauty that nature is that we can see that is coming back. So you can be talking about what the story is, but then pulling in the lesson that comes from that about, what, there is hope. There is hope for our environment. There is hope for us. Maybe we're going to have a new norm, a new way that we're going to be interacting with our environment. That's your story of hope. And then it can become part of your segue. So this is over to acknowledging Pete of story, segue, sell. If you've got your story, your segue there needs to then talk about how that hope relates to what it is that you've got to sell, because the sell is the next part. So depending on what market you're in, let me show you how you can be taking this one story and then you can be segueing that over. So I'm just looking down at my notes here because I came up with a few ideas here. If you're, just say it comes to do with, that health is one of the things that, you're selling something that helps people with health. You can then be focusing on, it just goes to show by simplifying, by clearing, whatever, this is the health, the change it makes to our environment. This is the same thing that can happen with you and your body. And this is your opportunity to change and be really focusing on the health, the clear. So you'd be doing it in that way. That could be to do with health. You could be looking at, if it was, say, to do with living naturally, if what you're doing might be around, either it might be a spirituality thing, it might be to do with natural products that you sell, it might be to do if you're a naturopath or if you're some kind of healer, those sorts of things. You can be talking about how, this is our moment to really embrace Mother Nature and to be with, this is going to be something that you're living as a full body, and this is your opportunity to change now. This is your call from the universe. Whatever language it is that you would use naturally that with your target market. So you can see the same story can be used to segue to a few different ones. So it could be, another one could be around creativity, where, there's lots of different stories that you could be using, but even if we tool from this one here, it can be around, this is, how can we creatively change what we're doing? So you might be moving over to creativity, self-expression. There's lots of ways that you can do this. I just wanted to give you that one as an example, but the important principles here are for you to know you've got to be very clear, first of all, on what you're offering, of course, but what is it that they need to be able to believe? What is the hope that they need to have? And what is the belief that they can do this that is going to allow them to even be receptive to hearing what you've got to offer? Keeping in mind, this is for people who want what you've got, they just can't hear it at the moment, okay? So be starting with there, be very clear on what is the moral of the story that you want to have. And then I want you to think about stories that you're seeing in the media, stories that are coming from your own life. In fact, I'll share with you, it's a little bit longer than I was going to, but I'll share with you another story that can help you relate to business. Just a simple one that's been happening that I just noticed this week. The important thing there is when you're choosing your story, make sure that you don't just dive through into the happy ending. You need to meet people where they are. You need to acknowledge the fear that they have. And once you've acknowledged that fear, then they will be receptive to hear the potential for hope. And it's only then that they will be receptive to hear what you've got to talk about. So your challenge is to make sure that they connect seamlessly. And I'll share you one more story and then an action that you can be doing this week that's going to help you to be able to do this. Okay, so one more story, because the last one, I think it's a bit of a push to try to pull it through to business. Okay, so just say your business to business. Another story that you could use. So choose stories of what you can see that people are already doing now. Or it could be stories from the past. The classic one is, I think it was, that's been going around is about Isaac Newton was quarantined, and that's where he, got all his great theories. So that's a classic one that's going around. But you can even talk about simple ones that relate to what's happening at the moment. As an example, just one of the conversations that I had this week, just when I went to the hairdressers, as an example, do you like it? Is, talking about, she goes to yoga. And so her yoga classes are being stopped, but she really loves the yoga teacher. She loves that opportunity to be there herself, to have that time out because she's a busy mum. She loves connecting with her friends that she's made through her yoga class that she that she's got as a regular commitment that she does, but it's closed. So you can talk about, that's the beginning of the story. How frustrating for her, and how, it's something that she really wants, and it's yet another thing, the one thing that she did for herself that kept her sane, and her connection with friends, and that's gone. What is she going to do now? She's just feeling isolated. And the other side of, wow, what is her yoga teacher going to do? She's going to lose all the clients. She's going to go broke. That's the beginning of your story. People are going to go, yeah, I can relate to that. These are the conversations I'm having constantly. Then you can talk about, but you know what? That fantastic yoga teacher, she went immediately and created a virtual meeting. So my client was telling me, or her client, so my hairdresser, was telling me about, so we actually all met through Zoom and through a video meeting, and I got to see all of my friends. We all, we put lights and nice, music in our background. And my yoga teacher led us through all the exercises that we did. And we still got to connect, and I got to carve out that time for myself. For the yoga teacher, she still kept her customers. She still stayed connected. She still was able to make money, and she still was able to help the people that needed her. So I tell that story for two reasons. One is it shows the hope. Okay, you can see the transition from fear and despair, and how you've been able to, through a story, emotionally connect them to potential for hope. And I also share it because, sure, I would then be selling on the end of that is, you know what? Do you know how to do that? Can you create a virtual service? That would be for me. If somebody else, you might be doing something else. Like, how do you know if this is something that is right for your business? Whatever it is. If you can tie that in to do with businesses and resilience, then that makes them so much more receptive to whatever you've got to offer. If you're offering, say, business coaching or a program that helps them with one part of it. So I tell you that one because it's not just talking about the business owner, but it's also talking about the client was happy, because that's going to be one of the biggest fears that your clients are going to have. And I know that my clients will have of, number one, how do I go virtual? But also, are my clients going to be happy? Like, you know, is this going to really disappoint them? Am I going to actually help them? That's going to be one of the objections. So it helps you to meet that objection as well. So that's just an example of one story from one conversation. Now, your homework, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is I want you to now just start in a notebook, in your phone, under notes, on your computer, wherever. I want you to start recording stories. And I want you to, when you're seeing there's no way that you can not be seeing stories when you're on Facebook. There's, you know, all these stories that are going around, videos being shared of these gorgeous Italians having their serenades of an evening. There's all these great stories that are happening in amongst the dramatic stories. So keep a record of those. And I want you to then not just keep a note of them, and not just keep a note of conversations that you're having, thoughts that you're having, things that people have told you, things that you're noticing happening in your local community, things that's happening on a government or a bigger business that you can see. I want you to keep a note of all of these stories, and then I want you to think about what is the fear that is at the beginning of this, and what is the ray of hope, and what is the moral that I can use that can segue that over into how I help people. That is your homework, okay? And I'll actually, as a part of this, I will create a sheet for you, a cheat sheet that will help to guide you through that, so that you can remember when you come across any of these stories, these are the things that I need to ask myself. So I'll have that there for you as a free downloadable to be able to help you. Okay, so I would love to hear from you. Now, wherever you're seeing this, whether you're seeing this as a podcast on iTunes, if you're hearing this on iTunes, please come over to the podcast page, because I will have that downloadable, that framework there for you. If you are watching this on social media or anywhere, there will be a link there for you where you can go and get this. What I would really appreciate from you is if you have a friend that needs to hear this, please share it with them. It helps me to get my message out further, and if it can stop one more business from going under in this time, that would be success for me. So if you can pass this on to a friend, it may be the thing that gets them thinking, that's going to get them started. So I'd really appreciate if you would do that. If you're over on iTunes, I would so appreciate if you would leave a review for me. That would be just brilliant. That helps me to help more people. So if you're watching this, listening to this as a podcast, I'd really appreciate that. But most importantly, just share it with friends if it's going to help them. And importantly, I really want to hear from you. So come over. I've got a free Facebook group that accompanies this podcast. It's called the Romance Your Tribe, and that's where we can discuss things here. So let me know, tell me a little bit about your business, and we can brainstorm there, okay? Some of the things that you can be doing, what sort of stories could work for you and your business. My clients that are in my success circle, this is stuff we can be working with hot seats that we've got there for you. If you're not in my success circle, I have got a crazy no-brainer offer that I have got just for the moment here of the corona. So if there's no links there wherever you're watching this for you to be able to see that, just message me, because honestly, I've thought about what's going to help you to be able to get results quickly, and also to be able to keep me going with that membership. So I've looked up at a win-win, so that if you want to know about that, I've got there. And also with my accelerator clients, we've totally all over this. So also working with my accelerator clients, I've put together for you, if you want to work with me really closely and just get this nailed quickly, that's why it's called Accelerator, contact me, because I've also got some really flexible payment plans for you to be able to work with me closely. Okay, so that's my last pitch at the end. No segue there, except I really want to hear from you. If you use this, let me know. I'll link wherever this is, so you can go and check out Pete. Go and thank him for his initial framework of the story, segue, sell. And this is my corona update to that. Okay, hope you and your family stay well through all of this, and that you just get out there and take action and thrive, baby. Okay, bye.